Carl Gustav Jung was not just a psychologist, he was a pioneer in understanding the hidden forces that shape our inner world. He believed that what we cannot face controls us, and that includes the brutal truth you might be avoiding right now. How do you emotionally detach from someone who doesn't love you? You start by telling the truth. Not the version you repeat to your friends, not the one where you say you're fine, where you act like it doesn't hurt. The real truth, that you gave love, real, vulnerable, wide-open love, to someone who couldn't hold it, who didn't want it, who looked at your heart and walked away. This is not weakness. This is not shameful. This is the collision between fantasy and reality, and you are the one caught in between. Jung taught that the psyche speaks in symbols, dreams, and pain is what shows up when we cling to a connection that doesn't exist anymore, or maybe never did. Pain is the message. And right now, it's asking you to stop searching for worth in someone else's silence. You are not here to win someone's love. You are here to remember your own. And that remembering begins with this: they don't love you. And you don't have to keep giving yourself to that absence. Detachment doesn't begin in the heart. It begins in the unconscious. And that's where it gets complicated. You can't detach all at once. The mind doesn't work like a light switch, and neither does the heart. If you've been tangled up in someone who never chose you, you've likely built your days around them without even noticing. Detachment, then, isn't just walking away, it's unwinding a pattern, slowly, intentionally, honestly. Start with the facts, not the feelings, not the fantasies. Write down what actually happened, what they said, what they did, what they consistently didn't do. Seeing it clearly on the page strips it of the narrative you've built around it. No excuses, no projections, just what is. This is your reality check. Use it. Next, begin to create friction between yourself and the routine you've built around them. If you check their messages every morning, stop. If you reread conversations to feel close again, stop. These rituals might feel harmless, but they're keeping the emotional thread alive. Cut it gently, but decisively. You don't need one more reminder that they weren't there for you. Emotional detachment requires space, not just physical distance, but mental real estate. If they still occupy your thoughts from morning to night, you'll feel like you're moving on while still standing in the same place. Replace the obsession with structure. Don't leave yourself wide open. Create anchors in your day, moments that belong only to you. Walking without your phone, writing what you're feeling, not what you wish they'd say. Silence that isn't about waiting, but about hearing your own voice again. Detach from the idea that closure will come from them. It won't. The conversation you keep rehearsing, the apology you want, the explanation you think will bring peace, it's probably never coming. And even if it did, it wouldn't heal you. What heals you is refusing to give more weight to someone's silence than to your own truth. You don't need their final word to begin again. A critical part of emotional detachment is learning to observe your emotional spikes without reacting to them. You will feel the urge to reach out. You will feel the loneliness swell and tell you it's not too late. That's not your intuition. That's withdrawal. Sit with it. Don't fight it, but don't feed it either. Let it pass without turning it into action. That's how you build strength, in the moments where you don't respond the way you always have. Don't pretend you're unaffected. That only deepens the fracture. Acknowledge what you're grieving without letting it define your every hour. Detachment is not denial. It's not pretending you never cared. It's knowing you can care and still walk away, because what you were given was not care in return. Reclaim the energy you were funneling into them and redirect it towards something that reinforces your identity. Not distraction, restoration. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Make your bed like it matters. Eat a meal without rushing through it. Call someone who remembers who you were before this. You're not trying to erase the pain. You're trying to stop feeding it with silence and self-abandonment. Some days will feel like backsliding. You'll think about them more. You'll feel that tug again. That doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're in transition. Habits don't disappear, they get rewritten. Every time you choose yourself, even in discomfort, you're building new patterns. Cut the fantasies off at the root. If your mind starts rewriting the past to make it more bearable, interrupt it. You're not being unfair by remembering the hurt. You're being honest. Emotional detachment requires truth-telling. To yourself, first, always. And finally, stop waiting to feel ready. Detachment isn't about being emotionally done. It's about deciding that your dignity matters more than your attachment. You might still care about them. You might always care. That's not weakness. That's humanity. But care alone doesn't justify staying connected to what continuously wounds you. This is how it begins, not with the absence of love, but with the presence of self-respect. You already know the person doesn't love you, not in the way you need, not in the way that brings you peace. Yet something in you keeps holding on, something deep, invisible, and persistent. It's not logic that keeps you tethered, it's memory. It's the way your nervous system remembers them, not just as a person, but as a fix. You're not chasing love. You're chasing the feeling of being needed, seen, chosen. And when they don't give it to you, your body interprets that as threat. So you cling harder. You try to solve the puzzle of their coldness, hoping that if you crack the code, you'll earn your place in their arms. But they're not a puzzle. They're an answer you don't want to hear. Letting go becomes a battle between what your mind knows and what your body fears. Because detaching from them doesn't just mean losing the person. It means facing the silence they leave behind. And that silence often echoes something much older, something that was already there before they ever arrived. You were trained somewhere along the way to call emotional distance normal, to work harder when affection is withheld, to confuse struggle with love. And now, when someone gives you less, something inside you wants to prove you're worthy of more. This is why emotional detachment can feel like erasing your own identity. Because your sense of self has become entangled with the effort to be enough for someone who has never been available. You're not just afraid of losing them. You're afraid of what it will mean if you stop trying. Because trying, reaching, proving, hoping has become a way of feeling alive. You keep grasping not because they are your home, but because you've forgotten how to return to yourself. The good news is this: what feels impossible now is not a reflection of your weakness. It's evidence of how deep the pattern runs. But even patterns can be interrupted. Even bonds that feel unbreakable can lose their power when you stop calling pain a form of love. And you will stop when the truth gets louder than the fantasy. There's something sacred about the moment you stop lying to yourself. You sit in the stillness, no longer negotiating with what's already been made clear. They don't love you, not because you are unlovable, not because you failed to be enough, but because love, real love, cannot be pulled out of someone who does not offer it freely. You gave them everything soft inside you. You waited for signs, for clarity, for effort, and in return you were met with fragments, inconsistencies, silence. Their presence was conditional, their affection timed, their words hollow. You felt it, but you stayed, because something in you hoped that if you just loved harder, they would finally see you. But here's the truth. Real love doesn't need to be chased. It doesn't need to be explained, decoded, or begged for. It stands on its own, quietly, steadily. It holds, even when things are imperfect. When someone doesn't love you, you feel it in their absence more than their words. You feel it in the way you keep making excuses for them, in the way you carry the relationship alone, in the way your heart sinks after every interaction, hoping for something more and getting less every time. And yet, you keep hoping. Because facing the truth feels like failure, like giving up. But it's not. It's release. It's the first honest breath after holding it in for too long. What hurts isn't just the loss. It's the realization that you were always the only one holding it together. This is not the story of love denied. It's the story of someone who loved deeply in the wrong direction. And now, it's time to stop waiting for what will never arrive. Because when someone doesn't love you, the most radical thing you can do is stop offering them your heart like it's still theirs to hold. There's a point in every attachment where the pain begins to outweigh the hope. But you keep holding on, not because it's still good, but because letting go feels like losing a piece of yourself. You're not just emotionally tired. You're spiritually drained. The weight of staying connected to someone who does not choose you pulls you further and further away from your center. You forget what it feels like to be loved with presence. You begin to mistake uncertainty for passion. Distance becomes a challenge to overcome, rather than a boundary to respect. You defend their coldness to others. You romanticize the little they give. You make pain noble and turn your silence into loyalty. But deep down, you know. You've known. It's not growing. It's not safe. It's not love. And still, you stay. Why? Because letting go isn't just the end of the connection. It's the end of the story you've wrapped your identity around. The story that says if you hold on long enough, they'll wake up. They'll realize. They'll become everything you've waited for. And when that doesn't happen, what are you left with? You're left with grief, not just over them, but over the version of yourself you lost trying to be chosen. The cost of holding on is your softness, your sleep, your clarity, your time, your capacity to give love where it could actually be received. You pour yourself into a well with no bottom, hoping it might become a home, but it never does. And while you stay, something quiet dies inside you, the part that used to dream, the part that once believed love was supposed to feel safe. You forget what it's like to be met with consistency, to be seen without having to explain, to rest in someone's presence instead of bracing for withdrawal. There is no peace in waiting for someone to become ready. There is only self-abandonment dressed as hope. And the longer you remain in that space, the more distorted your reflection becomes. You start to question your worth. You start to think maybe love is supposed to feel like work, like endurance, like ache. But love, real love, doesn't starve you. Letting go is not giving up. It's giving yourself back. And when you realize that, the pain of release becomes lighter than the weight of staying. Loving someone who doesn't love you back often feels like chasing something just out of reach. Not because they gave you love, but because they gave you just enough to stay invested, enough to imagine what it could become. And that imagination became the trap. You weren't holding on to them. You were holding on to the version of them you hoped they would grow into. The version who would finally see you, finally choose you. But that version only existed in your expectations, not in reality. You saw pieces. You gave meaning to their rare moments of attention. You explained away the distance. You told yourself they were just struggling, just guarded, just not ready. But love doesn't need that much explanation, and people who are capable of loving you don't keep you guessing. You built a story around their potential because the truth was too painful to sit with. The truth that they aren't going to become the person you imagined, that they already showed you who they are in their actions, their avoidance, their inability to show up. You wanted connection. What you got was confusion. You wanted reciprocity. What you got was delay. And that delay became your obsession. This is the illusion, believing that what hurts just needs more time, believing your love can unlock something in them, believing loyalty will be enough to make them stay. But someone who truly wants you doesn't leave you in limbo. Letting go means confronting what's real, not what might be, not what you saw once, not what they could become in a different life. It means stepping out of the story you've been rewriting to protect yourself from disappointment. Detachment becomes possible when you stop trying to make someone fit the love you deserve and start accepting that they never could. When the illusion falls apart, what follows isn't confidence, it's guilt. You begin to question if protecting yourself makes you selfish. You wonder if walking away makes you cold. But what you're actually doing is stepping out of a role you were never meant to play. Some people will only recognize your silence, not the hundreds of times you made space for them. That's when the confusion sets in. You start asking if maybe you expected too much, if maybe your boundaries were unfair. You forget how many versions of yourself you offered before you drew the line. There's a difference between shutting down and waking up. Emotional detachment is not emotional coldness. It's the refusal to keep proving your worth to someone who never truly saw it. Detachment doesn't numb you, it clears the noise. You're no longer running in circles trying to earn closeness. You stop measuring your value by how much someone else reacts to your absence. People will misread your distance. They'll call it bitterness. They won't see the restraint it took to stay kind while being overlooked. Let them misunderstand. You're not here to manage how others interpret your healing. Detachment is not about becoming hard. It's about no longer bending. Choosing to detach is one thing. Living with the aftershock is another. You can know that walking away was right and still feel the sting like something was torn from you. That confusion doesn't mean you've gone cold. It means you've stopped betraying yourself. The body takes longer than the mind. Even after you've stepped back, your chest tightens at the thought of them. Not because you want them back, but because you're adjusting to absence where there used to be chaos. Emotional withdrawal doesn't always come from love. Sometimes it comes from breaking the habit of waiting. Your sleep patterns shift. You hear their name in places it doesn't belong. You imagine how they'd react to things that no longer concern them. These are the symptoms of unbinding yourself. It's not a relapse, it's residue. When detachment is real, it leaves silence behind, and in that silence, the urge to reconnect will disguise itself as longing. Don't chase that feeling. Don't give it a name that makes it noble. It's just discomfort trying to find its way out. Everything in you will want to return to what feels familiar. But remember what it cost you. This ache isn't proof that you're empty. It's proof that you're healing. Somewhere between the urge to go back and the strength to stay away, you begin to notice yourself again. The exhaustion that followed you for weeks starts to lift. Not all at once, but enough to make space for clarity. You're no longer waking up wondering how they feel. You're wondering what you feel. That question changes everything. It's not just about forgetting someone. It's about reclaiming the energy you spent trying to be enough. That energy wasn't lost. It was redirected. You were giving it away to a connection that didn't hold you. Now, it's yours again. You stopped chasing. Not because the feeling disappeared, but because you finally understood it wasn't leading anywhere worth going. That shift didn't fix everything, but it cleared the path. You start noticing what you abandoned, your pace, your curiosity, the things you postponed because you were always emotionally on call for someone who rarely showed up. Those pieces didn't disappear. They were waiting. Redefining love doesn't mean closing yourself off. It means refusing to call inconsistency romantic. It means recognizing that love, real love, doesn't leave you in doubt. It meets you without needing to be chased. There's nothing selfish about turning inward. What's selfish is asking someone to shrink themselves to feel worthy. You don't have to do that anymore. You begin to make choices without scanning your mind for how they might react. You dress for yourself. You speak without editing. You walk into a room and you're not hoping to be noticed. You already are by the person who matters most, you. Something else happens too. You start recognizing the difference between intensity and connection. You stop mistaking tension for chemistry. You stop calling instability passion. What once felt magnetic now just feels exhausting. The world doesn't suddenly become easier, but your place in it becomes clearer. And that clarity creates space for new habits, new people, new standards. Not because you're proving anything, because you've remembered what it feels like to belong to yourself. You're not harder now, you're sharper. You're no longer waiting to be chosen. You've already chosen. And that decision changes everything. If this spoke to something you've been carrying quietly, leave a comment. I'd genuinely like to know what part stayed with you. And if this helped in any way, feel free to subscribe. Not for numbers, for yourself. Thank you for watching,